Maya Johnson was just trying to get home. The 22-year-old art student had spent the entire evening at the community center in East Atlanta, teaching kids how to paint murals as part of her volunteer work. Her backpack was heavy with brushes, spray cans, and sketch pads, tools of her trade that she carried everywhere like a badge of honor. It was nearly 11 p.m. when she stepped off the MARTA bus at the Buckhead station. The area was well lit, busy with late-night commuters and people heading home from dinner. Maya pulled her hoodie up against the October chill and started the 6-block walk to her apartment. She had her headphones in, listening to a podcast about contemporary black artists, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. Officer Derek Mitchell had been having a rough night. 3 domestic disturbance calls, a fender-bender that took 2 hours to sort out, and a convenience store robbery that led nowhere. He was tired, frustrated, and looking for something, anything, that might make his shift feel productive. When he spotted Maya walking down Peachtree Road with her hood up and a heavy backpack, something in his gut told him to pay attention. "Dispatch, I've got a suspicious individual walking northbound on Peachtree," he radioed in. Young black male, approximately 5 feet 6 inches, wearing dark clothing, carrying what appears to be a large bag. Maya was actually 5 feet 8 inches, clearly female to anyone who looked closely, but Officer Mitchell was viewing her through the lens of assumption and bias. In his mind, a young black person walking alone at night with a backpack could only mean one thing: trouble. He pulled his patrol car to the curb and stepped out. "Hey! You there?" Maya didn't hear him at first. The podcast was discussing how systemic racism affected art funding, and she was completely absorbed. It wasn't until Officer Mitchell's partner, Officer James Rodriguez, turned on the car's spotlight that Maya noticed the commotion behind her. She turned around, pulling out her earbuds, and immediately felt her stomach drop. 2 police officers were approaching her, hands resting on their belts, faces set in hard lines. "Can I help you, officers?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. Her mother had given her the talk years ago: how to behave during police encounters, how to keep her hands visible, how to stay calm even when her heart was racing. "What's in the bag?" Officer Mitchell demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. "Art supplies," Maya replied. "I volunteer at the community center. I was just heading home." Officer Rodriguez stepped closer. "Mind if we take a look?" Maya knew her rights. She also knew that asserting them as a young black woman could escalate the situation quickly. "Am I under arrest? Did I do something wrong?" "Just answer the question," Mitchell snapped. "What's in the bag?" "Like I said, art supplies. Paints, brushes, sketch pads. I'm an art student at SEAD." She was referring to the Savannah College of Art and Design, where she was in her senior year, majoring in public art and community engagement. But Officer Mitchell wasn't listening to her words. He was seeing what he expected to see: a young black person being difficult and uncooperative. In his mind, innocent people didn't ask questions. They just complied. "Turn around and put your hands on the car," he ordered. "For what?" Maya's voice cracked slightly. "I haven't done anything wrong. Turn around now, or we'll turn you around." Maya's hands were shaking as she placed them on the hood of the patrol car. She felt Officer Rodriguez's hands patting her down while Mitchell rifled through her backpack. Spray paint cans clattered onto the sidewalk, followed by brushes, charcoal pencils, and her sketchbook. Well, Mitchell said, holding up a can of red spray paint. "What do we have here?" "It's paint," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For art. Or for vandalism," Mitchell replied. "We've had reports of graffiti in this area. Looks like we found our artist." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "I don't do graffiti. I do community murals. Legal ones. With permits." But the officers weren't interested in permits or explanations. They were interested in an arrest that would make their night feel worthwhile. Mitchell pulled out his handcuffs. "You're under arrest for possession of vandalism tools and suspicious behavior." Suspicious behavior? Maya's voice rose in disbelief. "I was walking home." The handcuffs clicked around her wrists, cold metal against her dark skin. People on the street had started to notice the commotion. Some pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Others just walked by, not wanting to get involved. Maya felt humiliated, terrified, and angry all at once. She thought about her mother, who had worked so hard to give her opportunities, who had sacrificed everything to pay for art school. She thought about the kids she'd been teaching earlier that evening, how excited they'd been about their paintings. She thought about her senior thesis project, a series of murals celebrating black women in STEM fields. "I want to call my mother," she said as they guided her toward the patrol car. "You'll get your phone call at the station," Rodriguez replied, not unkindly, but not sympathetically either. As they drove through the streets of Atlanta, Maya stared out the window at the city she loved, the city where she'd grown up, the city where she'd dreamed of making her mark as an artist. Now she was seeing it from the back of a police car, her hands cuffed behind her back, her future suddenly uncertain. What Maya didn't know was that her mother, Dr. Keisha Johnson, was at that very moment in a boardroom in Silicon Valley, 3 time zones away, putting the finishing touches on a presentation that would change the tech industry forever. Dr. Johnson was the CEO and founder of Neuralink Dynamics, an artificial intelligence company that had just developed breakthrough technology for predictive policing algorithms. The irony was not lost on the universe. While her daughter was being arrested based on racial profiling and assumptions, Keisha was creating technology designed to eliminate bias in law enforcement. At 45, Dr. Johnson was a force of nature. She had grown up in the same Atlanta neighborhoods where Maya now lived, the daughter of a single mother who cleaned office buildings to pay for her education. Keisha had earned a full scholarship to MIT, where she studied computer science and artificial intelligence. After graduation, she'd worked for Google, then Facebook, before striking out on her own 5 years ago. Neuralink Dynamics had grown from a startup in her garage to a company valued at over $2 billion. They employed 500 people across 3 countries and had contracts with police departments, federal agencies, and international organizations. Dr. Johnson was one of the most powerful black women in tech, and she'd built her empire on the principle that technology should serve justice, not perpetuate inequality. She was in the middle of explaining her company's latest algorithm to a room full of investors when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, a call from an unknown Atlanta number. She let it go to voicemail and continued her presentation. "Our predictive policing system doesn't just analyze crime data," she was saying to the room of mostly white, mostly male investors. "It analyzes the biases built into that data. It can identify when arrests are being made based on racial profiling rather than actual criminal behavior. It's not just about predicting crime, it's about predicting and preventing injustice." The investors were impressed. This was exactly the kind of socially conscious technology that looked good in their portfolios while also promising massive returns. Police departments across the country were desperate for tools that could help them avoid the kind of scandals that had plagued law enforcement in recent years. Dr. Johnson's phone buzzed again. Same Atlanta number. This time, she excused herself and stepped into the hallway to listen to the voicemail. "Dr. Johnson, this is Maya Johnson. I'm your daughter. I'm at the Fulton County Jail. I've been arrested. I don't know what to do. Please call me back." The phone slipped from Keisha's hand and clattered to the floor. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Maya was supposed to be at home, working on her senior project. She was supposed to be safe. Keisha picked up her phone with shaking hands and called the number back. A automated system answered, "Thank you for calling the Fulton County Jail. If you are calling about an inmate." She hung up and immediately called her assistant. "Cancel everything. Book me on the next flight to Atlanta. Now." "But Dr. Johnson, the presentation dash." "Cancel it. Family emergency." Within an hour, Dr. Johnson was on a private jet heading east, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. She used the flight time to make calls, to lawyers, to contacts in the Atlanta Police Department, to anyone who might be able to help her understand what had happened to her daughter. By the time she landed at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, she had assembled a team. Marcus Williams, one of Atlanta's top criminal defense attorneys. Sarah Chen, a civil rights lawyer who specialized in police misconduct cases. And Detective Lieutenant Angela Davis, a family friend who worked in internal affairs. Maya had been processed and was sitting in a holding cell when her mother's legal team arrived at the jail. She had been there for 6 hours, still wearing the same clothes she'd worn to teach art to kids, still trying to understand how her life had gone so wrong so quickly. The holding cell was cold and smelled like disinfectant and despair. Maya sat on a metal bench next to a woman who'd been arrested for shoplifting and another who was there on a drug charge. They'd been kind to her, sharing their stories and offering what comfort they could. Maya learned that both women had children, both were struggling to make ends meet, both had been failed by systems that were supposed to help them. First time, the shoplifting woman, whose name was Carmen, asked gently. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "It's scary, I know. But you'll get through this. We all do." When the guard called Maya's name, she felt a mixture of relief and terror. She was led to a small room where Marcus Williams was waiting, his expensive suit and confident demeanor a stark contrast to the institutional gray of the jail. "Maya, I'm Marcus Williams. Your mother sent me. Are you okay?" Maya burst into tears. For the first time since her arrest, she felt like someone was actually listening to her, actually cared about what happened to her. "I didn't do anything wrong," she sobbed. "I was just walking home." Marcus handed her a tissue and sat down across from her. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Maya recounted the entire evening, the volunteer work, the bus ride, the walk home, the encounter with the officers. Marcus took notes, asking clarifying questions, building a timeline. "They said I was carrying vandalism tools," Maya said. "But they were art supplies. I have receipts. I have photos of the work I do with kids. I have permits for every mural I've ever painted." Marcus nodded. "We're going to get you out of here, Maya. Your mother is on her way." "My mom? She's in California." "Not anymore." 2 hours later, Maya was released on her own recognizance, thanks to Marcus's connections and Dr. Johnson's reputation. She walked out of the jail into the Atlanta morning sunshine to find her mother waiting by a black SUV, her face a mixture of relief and fury. They hugged for a long time, neither of them speaking. Finally, Dr. Johnson pulled back and looked at her daughter's face, searching for signs of harm. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "No, Mom. I'm okay. Just scared." Dr. Johnson's jaw tightened. "We're going to make this right, baby. I promise you that." They drove to Maya's apartment in silence, both of them processing what had happened. Maya showered and changed clothes while her mother made phone calls, her voice sharp and commanding as she spoke to lawyers, journalists, and city officials. When Maya emerged from her bedroom, she found her mother sitting at her small kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents and her laptop. Dr. Johnson looked up, and Maya could see the determination in her eyes. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm going to war," Dr. Johnson said simply. Over the next few days, Dr. Johnson assembled a case that would expose not just the injustice of Maya's arrest, but the systemic problems that made it possible. She hired private investigators to look into Officers Mitchell and Rodriguez's arrest records. She commissioned data analysts to examine arrest patterns in the Buckhead area. She brought in experts on racial bias in policing. What they found was damning. Officer Mitchell had a pattern of arresting young black people on minor charges that rarely stuck in court. In the past 2 years, 73% of his arrests had been dismissed or resulted in plea bargains for time served. Officer Rodriguez, while not as egregious, had been his partner on most of these arrests and had never filed a complaint or raised concerns. The data analysis revealed that young black people in the Buckhead area were 3 times more likely to be stopped and searched than their white counterparts, despite lower rates of actual criminal activity. The suspicious behavior charge that Maya faced was almost exclusively applied to people of color. Dr. Johnson's team also discovered that the Atlanta Police Department had been looking for a vendor to provide bias detection technology for their officers. The irony was perfect. They needed exactly the kind of system that Dr. Johnson's company had developed. But Dr. Johnson wasn't interested in irony. She was interested in justice. She called a press conference for the following Monday, exactly 1 week after Maya's arrest. The location was symbolic, the steps of the Atlanta City Hall, with the skyline of the city's business district in the background. Maya stood beside her mother, wearing a simple black dress and her grandmother's pearl necklace. She had spent the week working with a media coach, preparing for the questions that would come. But more importantly, she had spent time with her art, creating a series of paintings that captured her experience and emotions from that night. Dr. Johnson approached the podium with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing and wasn't about to let anyone tear down her daughter. "My name is Dr. Keisha Johnson," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the crowd of reporters, activists, and curious onlookers. "I am the CEO of Neuralink Dynamics, a company that creates artificial intelligence systems for law enforcement. I am also the mother of Maya Johnson, a 22-year-old art student who was arrested last week for the crime of walking home while black." The crowd murmured. Cameras flashed. Maya felt her mother's strength flowing into her. "My daughter was arrested for carrying art supplies. She was handcuffed and jailed for teaching children to paint. She was criminalized for pursuing her education and giving back to her community." Dr. Johnson's voice grew stronger with each sentence. "This is not just about Maya. This is about every young black person who has been seen as a threat instead of a treasure. This is about every parent who has to give their child instructions on how to survive a police encounter instead of how to thrive in the world." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I have spent my career developing technology to help police departments make better decisions, to reduce bias, to serve justice instead of perpetuating inequality. But technology is only as good as the people who use it. And if those people see my daughter, an honor student, a volunteer, an artist, as a criminal, then we have work to do that goes far beyond algorithms." Dr. Johnson then did something unexpected. She stepped aside and invited Maya to speak. Maya approached the microphone with her heart pounding, but her voice was steady when she began to speak. "My name is Maya Johnson. I am not a victim. I am not a statistic. I am an artist, a student, a daughter, a teacher, and a member of this community." She looked directly into the cameras. "What happened to me happens to young black people every day in this city and across this country. We are stopped for walking, arrested for existing, criminalized for breathing while black." She held up one of her paintings, a powerful image of hands reaching through prison bars toward a paintbrush. "This is what I created while I was processing what happened to me. Art has always been my way of making sense of the world, of turning pain into purpose. But I shouldn't have to create art about being arrested for carrying art supplies." The crowd was silent, hanging on her every word. "I want to be clear about something," Maya continued. "I don't hate police officers. I understand that many of them are trying to do a difficult job in challenging circumstances. But I do hate the systems that teach them to see me as a threat instead of a human being. I hate the biases that turn my backpack full of paintbrushes into evidence of criminal intent." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "My mother has built a company that can help fix these problems. But technology alone isn't enough. We need people to change. We need systems to change. We need hearts and minds to change." Maya stepped back from the microphone, and Dr. Johnson returned to the podium. "Today, I am announcing the Maya Johnson Initiative," she said. Neuralink Dynamics will be partnering with the Atlanta Police Department to implement our bias detection technology at no cost to the city. We will also be establishing a scholarship fund for young artists from underserved communities, and we will be creating a civilian oversight board to review arrests like my daughter's. The crowd erupted in applause, but Dr. Johnson wasn't finished. But most importantly, she continued, we will be filing a federal civil rights lawsuit against the Atlanta Police Department and the officers involved in my daughter's arrest. Because justice delayed is justice denied, and my daughter, and every young person like her, deserves better. The press conference made national news within hours. The video of Maya speaking went viral on social media, shared by celebrities, activists, and ordinary people who saw themselves or their children in her story. Hashtag Justice for Maya began trending on Twitter, but Maya herself asked people to use hashtag art is not a crime instead. The response was overwhelming. Art students from across the country began sharing their own stories of being profiled or harassed. Parents shared photos of their children with their art supplies, using the hashtag #MyArtistMatters. Professional artists donated works to be auctioned for Maya's legal defense fund. But the most powerful response came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the press conference, Officer James Rodriguez requested a meeting with Dr. Johnson and Maya. He came alone, out of uniform, to the conference room at Marcus Williams' law office. Rodriguez was a 15-year veteran of the Atlanta Police Department, the son of Mexican immigrants who had joined the force because he wanted to serve his community. He sat across from Maya and her mother, his hands folded on the table, his eyes filled with something that looked like shame. I want to apologize, he said quietly. To both of you. What we did was wrong. Maya studied his face, looking for sincerity. She found it. I've been a cop for 15 years, Rodriguez continued. I became a cop because I wanted to help people. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing people like you as people I was supposed to help. I started seeing you as problems to be solved. Dr. Johnson leaned forward. What changed? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. I have a daughter. She's 19, studying graphic design at Georgia State. When I saw that video of Maya speaking, I realized that could have been my daughter. And if it had been my daughter, I would want someone to apologize. I would want someone to take responsibility. He looked directly at Maya. You were right. You were just walking home. You were carrying art supplies. You weren't doing anything wrong, and we treated you like a criminal. I'm sorry. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of something she hadn't expected to feel, hope. Thank you, she said simply. That means a lot. Rodriguez nodded. I've been talking to other officers about what happened. Some of them are angry at me for coming here. But others are starting to ask questions. About how we do our jobs. About who we're really serving. Dr. Johnson studied the officer carefully. Are you willing to testify about what happened? To help us make sure this doesn't happen to other young people? Rodriguez nodded without hesitation. Yes. Whatever it takes. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Rodriguez provided details about the arrest that contradicted the official police report. He admitted that there had been no actual reports of graffiti in the area that night. He acknowledged that Maya had been cooperative and respectful throughout the encounter. Most importantly, he agreed to work with Dr. Johnson's team to help implement bias training for other officers. When the meeting ended, Maya walked Rodriguez to the elevator. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. Do you really think things can change? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. I have to believe they can. Because if they can't, then I've wasted 15 years of my life doing the wrong thing. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside. As they closed, he said, keep making art, Maya. The world needs it. Over the following months, Maya's case became a catalyst for change in Atlanta and beyond. The federal lawsuit resulted in a settlement that included policy changes, additional training, and financial compensation. But more importantly, it sparked conversations about bias, justice, and the power of speaking truth to power. Officer Mitchell was suspended pending investigation and eventually resigned from the force. Officer Rodriguez became an advocate for police reform, working with Dr. Johnson's team to develop training programs that helped officers recognize and overcome their biases. The Maya Johnson initiative grew beyond anyone's expectations. The scholarship fund provided full college tuition for 50 young artists in its first year. The Civilian Oversight Board reviewed hundreds of cases and recommended changes that reduced discriminatory arrests by 40%. Dr. Johnson's company expanded its bias detection technology to police departments in 15 cities, with measurable improvements in community relations and reductions in discriminatory policing. But perhaps the most significant change was in Maya herself. She completed her senior thesis project, a series of murals installed throughout Atlanta that celebrated young black artists and activists. The centerpiece was a 50-foot mural on the side of the community center where she volunteered, depicting hands of different colors reaching toward paintbrushes, musical instruments, and books. At the bottom of the mural, in bold letters, were the words, "Art is not a crime." Maya graduated summa cum laude from SCAD and was accepted into graduate programs at Yale, Columbia, and the Rhode Island School of Design. But she chose to stay in Atlanta, to continue her work in the community, to keep teaching kids that their creativity was valuable and their voices mattered. She opened her own studio in the same neighborhood where she'd been arrested, a bright, welcoming space where young artists could come to learn, create, and dream. Above the door, she hung a sign that read, "Everyone welcome. Art supplies provided." On the one-year anniversary of her arrest, Maya and her mother returned to the spot on Peachtree Road where it had all begun. They stood there for a few minutes, remembering that night and how much had changed since then. "Do you ever regret it?" Dr. Johnson asked. "Everything that happened?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I regret that it had to happen. I regret that other young people are still going through what I went through. But I don't regret what came after. I don't regret finding my voice." They walked together toward Maya's studio, where a group of teenagers was waiting for their evening art class. As they approached, Maya could hear laughter and excited chatter spilling out onto the sidewalk. "You know what the best part is?" Maya said to her mother. "What's that?" "Those kids in there. They're going to grow up knowing that their art matters. That their voices matter. That they matter." Dr. Johnson smiled, watching her daughter unlock the studio door and greet her students with the same warmth and enthusiasm she'd always had. "That's worth everything," she said. Inside the studio, Maya began the evening's lesson by showing her students a new painting she'd been working on. It depicted a young black woman walking down a city street at night, her backpack full of art supplies, her head held high, her future bright with possibility. "Art tells stories," Maya told her students. "Sometimes they're stories about pain. Sometimes they're stories about joy. But they're always stories about truth. And truth has the power to change the world." One of the students, a 16-year-old named Jasmine, raised her hand. "Ms. Maya, what if people don't want to hear our truth?" Maya smiled, remembering a night 1 year ago when she'd felt powerless and invisible. "Then we make it so beautiful, so powerful, so undeniable that they have no choice but to listen." She handed Jasmine a paintbrush. "Now, let's create something amazing." As the students began to work, Maya looked around the studio at the young faces concentrated on their art, their hands moving confidently across canvases, their imaginations running free. She thought about all the obstacles they would face, all the people who might try to diminish their dreams or criminalize their creativity. But she also thought about the power they held in their hands, the power to create, to inspire, to change hearts and minds one brushstroke at a time. Outside, the city of Atlanta hummed with life. Police officers patrolled the streets, some of them now equipped with technology that helped them see past their biases. Young people walked home from school and work, their backpacks full of books and dreams and art supplies. And in a bright studio on a busy street, a teacher who had once been arrested for carrying paintbrushes was showing the next generation that their art was not a crime, it was a revolution. The story of Maya Johnson and her mother Dr. Keisha Johnson became more than just a news story or a legal case. It became a reminder that change is possible when people refuse to accept injustice as inevitable. It showed that sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is to exceed every expectation. Most importantly, it proved that art, in all its forms, has the power to transform not just individuals, but entire communities. Because when we create, we declare our humanity. When we share our stories, we build bridges of understanding. And when we refuse to be silenced, we change the world. Maya's paintbrushes had been seen as weapons by officers who couldn't see past their own biases. But in the hands of her students, in the murals that now decorated Atlanta's walls, in the conversations that continued long after the news cameras went away, those same paintbrushes became exactly what they had always been: tools of creation, instruments of hope, and weapons against ignorance. The young woman who had been arrested for walking while black had become a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the power of speaking truth to power. Her mother, the tech CEO who had built algorithms to detect bias, had shown that sometimes the most sophisticated technology is no match for a mother's love and determination. Together, they had turned a moment of injustice into a movement for change. They had transformed pain into purpose, fear into strength, and silence into a voice that could not be ignored. And in art studios and community centers across the country, young people picked up paintbrushes and pencils and cameras, knowing that their creativity was not a crime, it was their birthright, their power, and their gift to the world. The story continues every day, in every young person who refuses to be diminished, in every parent who fights for their child's dreams, in every community that chooses hope over fear. Because the most beautiful art is not created on canvas or carved in stone, it's created in the lives we touch, the minds we change, and the world we leave behind. Maya Johnson's arrest lasted one night. But the art she created from that experience will last forever.